As fall weather settles in around the country, RVers are thinking of one of two things: winterizing and storing their RVs, or how to keep their RVs warmer because they're going to be staying in them as those cold nights also become cold days. That is where AirSkirts comes in. They have come up with a system to block the wind from getting under your rig, keeping the cold air out and helping you to insulate the air that's already under there, meaning your floors won't be as cold and you are going to be able to stay warmer in your rig with burning less propane and maybe not wearing 6 layers of clothing like you might have to otherwise. I'm pretty sure the thing that's going to take the longest during this installation of the AirSkirts is putting the protectors on any sharp corners you have on your rig. And it's simply because it's done with that 3M tape. And if you've ever used that heavy duty stuff, getting those little red covers to peel off so that you can use the tape is always fun. It is already installed on the corner protectors, but you have to peel off the other side to stick it to, like in this case, the valve handle frames is what I had to put it on. It is nice. They give you plenty of those if you need them, and they already come with the tape installed. So that's super nice. Comes with alcohol wipes, comes with primer wipes, so you can get everything ready to go, get it nice and clean, and you're going to get a good adhesion. The upside of this, of course, is that the second time you go to install the AirSkirts, these should already be in place and you don't have to worry about them. Normal, regular routine of installing your AirSkirts, this only has to be done the first time. AirSkirts does say that your sewer pipes, other kinds of obstacles that the AirSkirts might run into shouldn't be a problem as you inflate them. You just watch for those and they will conform around them as long as you're careful with them. But you do want to watch for anything that's got a sharp corner to it. Got the AirSkirts installed for the first time. It was a bit of a learning curve, and that's why it took me probably 2 to 2.5 hours to get it done completely. But keep in mind, first time, and as I said in the unboxing video, there's going to be a learning curve. I also had to install any of the protective strips that are going to be on the sharp corners and the sharp edges. And I discovered there's a lot more sharp edges underneath an Airstream than I ever thought there would be. So as I was inflating the AirSkirts, I would see them start to hit something, and I erred on the side of caution. There's a couple spots where it probably would have been okay without the protective bump strip. I went ahead and applied them anyway because they sent plenty along to do that, and I figured better safe than sorry. So there is that extra time. Plus, I'm shooting video of everything that I'm doing, so that's taking extra time as well. One other thing to keep in mind is if you have a partner who can help. Jesse was working and in meetings all day and not able to help me today, so I decided just to tackle this myself and see if it could be done by a person by themselves. And it can be. It's going to take a little bit longer, like any other project. If you had someone who could run the pump while someone else is kind of positioning the AirSkirts, I think that's going to go a little bit faster and a little bit easier. As it was, I was kind of like filling them up, moving around, filling them up, moving around, deflating them, inflating them, doing all kinds of things with them to make them fit as best they can. Every RV is a little different, and so your setup time is going to be a little bit different. What you have to do is going to be a little bit different. There's a couple of spots where they seem a little haphazard to me, and I think that's just because it's the first time that I've installed them, and I might want to try to tweak where they are at. Inflating and deflating is a breeze. That pump is super powerful, and in fact, almost too powerful at times. You have to be careful, especially if you're by yourself, when you go to inflate those, that they don't end up damaging something on your rig, let alone popping the AirSkirt itself. I'm more concerned with the bottom side of the Airstream with all the different thinner metals and aluminum and everything else under there, or the pipes for your sewer or your valve handles, anything like that. Be careful that you don't inflate these things so hard and so fast that you end up doing some kind of damage. But the valve system they have on these is super easy to use. You can easily deflate them just a touch if you need to, or a lot if you need to. You can kind of figure out where you need to maybe push some air down and out of the way so it's not bumping something quite so hard underneath the rig. And that's what I really like about the larger tubes. The longer ones actually have valves on both ends, and it makes it super easy to be able to reach wherever you need to on one end or the other to deflate just a little bit, and then you can inflate from either side based on, just where it's easier to get to, I suppose. But those worked equally well, and I really like that system for that reason. Probably the funkiest place you're going to see these installed is around your valve handles for your gray and your black tank, your sewer dump tube. That's going to be in the way. That's not really a problem. It just kind of molds around the round tube. but I had to put protective covers on the valve handle frames, and I had to be careful that as I was inflating those, I didn't actually end up moving those rods and starting to bend them, because these things are really strong. The pump is really strong, and I think they were going to start moving those valve handles long before these things would have popped. So keep that in mind. But that also means I have them a little bit deflated around the valve handles and the sewer pipe. I don't have a problem with that really, because what that does is it also creates a bit of a divot there where I am still going to be able to hook up the sewer hose, or have the sewer hose hooked up, because these are probably going to be used mostly when we are stationary, and I can still pull the valve handles and not have any problem with the air skirts getting in the way. I shouldn't have to deflate them in order to do that, and that's going to be key, because you're generally going to use these when you are stationary for a while, and that means you're going to be pulling those handles quite regularly. The instruction manual they send with this is really easy to understand, and it includes some tips and tricks, and you should read all of those because they are super handy. One of the things they recommend is starting at one end, either the front or the back, and then filling in the middle with the other tubes, and then you kind of go around and adjust everything as you go. I started at the back of the Airstream because I wanted the tube in the back as tucked under as much as possible so it wasn't in the way at the back of the rig, and I knew I had more room up front under the tongue where I could kind of adjust where that was going to be and not have the air skirt in the way no matter what, because the tongue is there anyway. Then I worked my way forward with the different tubes going, up to the tires and then up to the front towards that tongue, and it worked really well. The inflation and deflation being so simple and easy, I actually ended up deflating a couple of them, moving them around a little bit, tucking them in again, reinflating everything. When I was all said and done, I went around and actually tweaked a couple of them with just a little bit more air once everything was in place, and that tightens it up, because the goal here is to block the wind and keep that cold air from getting underneath. Where you are inflating the tube that goes up underneath the stairs, you end up with a little bit of a gap there, because you can inflate around the stairs, but if you really push up too far into the stairs, you're going to have a problem with the tube and possibly the operation of the stairs. What's nice is you can get the sort of fill-in pillow. I don't remember exactly what they call it, but essentially it is for filling in gaps where you might have an odd shape or an odd spot on your RV, and we had one on the Airstream underneath the stairs, so I went ahead and put one of those sort of wedge pillows in there. That has taken care of any kind of an air gap in that spot. One of the things AirSkirts says is they shouldn't be a solid tube. They should be flexible to the touch. Remember, you're not trying to lift your RV with these things. These are just to try to block the wind and the air and insulate underneath your rig. So that is key. And that's why you want to make sure that you don't overinflate, and then you go ahead and actually probably underinflate a couple of them more than you think you should. AirSkirts says that what you want is that they shouldn't move if you give them a light kick. They should be flexible to the touch, and they should just block the air, and that's what you're looking for. And I think that's going to be one of those situations where the more you do this, the better you're going to get at it. You'll get a handle on how much air they need to have, and then as the temperatures change, you're going to be dealing with that a little bit as well. We also have the tire wedges. They are inflatable. Those things work great. Be careful not to overinflate them, because that pump is going to make them super stiff, super fast. And so you want to make sure that you don't damage them, but also you need just a tiny little bit of air in them so you can kind of get an idea of their shape. Then you put those into your tires or in between the tires. Then you hook up the pump and inflate them until they are solid. One thing I will mention is that AirSkirts does note these are not compatible with X-Chocks. So if you are using X-Chocks and you rely on those a lot, the tire wedges may not be for you. We sometimes use those. We don't always. For now, I'm going to use the tire wedges as I'm testing AirSkirts and see how well they work. You can also get tire covers from AirSkirts. Those go over both wheels. They cover the wedges that are in there, and they block the wind on their own. They're nice and heavy duty. If you are a confirmed X-Chock user and you're thinking, I don't really want the tire wedges because I'd rather have the X-Chocks, get these heavy duty tire covers from AirSkirts, and that's going to take care of anything you might need in terms of blocking the wind that's going to go through the wheels, which is important. You need to have something covering your tires and your wheels, because otherwise that's a giant air gap as well. One thing to note is, based on the size of your rig, there is a lot of pieces to this AirSkirt system. And so if you have a larger rig like ours, in terms of Airstreams, we have a 30-foot, there are a lot of tubes to deal with. There's a lot of pieces, and that means a lot of things that you're going to have to store someplace, and you're going to have to deal with some extra weight. If you have a much shorter Airstream, you're obviously not going to need the giant tubes that we have, or nearly as many tubes. If you have a really big RV, like some of the big fifth wheels, you may actually have more pieces pieces than we have, but you also inherently have more storage space and you can handle more weight than we can in the Airstream in the van. That's just something I wanted to mention, that this is not something that is going to fold up into a very small package and you're just going to tuck into any Airstream compartment. You're going to have to some place to put this, whether that's in your tow vehicle, or in talking to somebody from AirSkirts, they said that instead of folding them all up and putting them in the bags, they have people that have just laid them out flat in the bottom of one of the storage areas in the Airstream, and then they pile other stuff on top of it, and they're pretty heavy duty, so it doesn't hurt them. I do like the way that AirSkirts work in that they are inflatable and they're going to kind of wrap themselves around different areas of your rig. A key spot here on the Airstream right now is because of where we're parked, we have the nose tipped up quite a bit and obviously the rear bumper is going to be down. So you have a situation where in order to fill in underneath the rig, you've got more space towards the tires and less at the very end of the rig, and the AirSkirts just simply kind of molded itself a little bit to the bottom of the bumper, and then the rest of it is a little bit taller, and that's where the air went, and so I think that's working really well. I'm pretty sure the more I do this setup, the easier it's going to get, so it's going to go faster, and I think I also am going to find that they will fit a little bit better, they will look a little bit better when they're done. I sort of stuck them in there where I could, inflated them, got them going. I'm going to use this as a learning process, as I think any owner of AirSkirts is going to do, so that by the time you're a pro at setting up the AirSkirts, I think you're going to have them looking the way you want. Quick update on the AirSkirts. After having them installed for a couple of days, I put them in when it was probably about mid-50s. It's been that way during the day, and at night it's been a little bit cooler. Last night it got cold. We hit 29 degrees before it started to come back up, and they did lose pressure. They're not losing air. The pressure inside is changing because of the temperature of the air inside increasing and decreasing. This morning, there were a couple of spots where there were actually some pretty good gaps. And now that the temperature started to warm up, and on the other side where it's really bright sun and they are warm to the touch, they are nice and snug once again. And that's something that AirSkirts has to watch for. As you can tell from my clothing choices, it has gotten colder out here in mid-Michigan. So I've gone ahead and pumped up the AirSkirts with a little more air to bring them where I want them to stay when it gets extra cold. Everybody that has them seems to like them, and so we're excited to give them a test and see if we can recommend them for you. In the meantime, keep on trekking, and we'll see you out there.